talk about anything Rocket League related, anything esports related, and then obviously stuff around Havoc Esports um, as a whole. Um, so I guess we'll move into the interview for Kilo, so we can get a little more information about you. Um,
So
so who you are, how'd you get into Rocket League, what team you play for in Havoc, and all that good stuff.
I got into Rocket League. My boy Zay, he's like, "Yo, try this game out." I used to play Fortnite. He's like, "Yo, try this little car game." I'm like, "Oh, bet." And then I tried it out. I did the free version on PS4, and then eventually I actually liked the game enough to actually buy it, just to not be able to play it for like a year. And then I got a computer, and then I got the game on Steam, and then I just got the game. And I joined Havoc through my boys. They played on Team Cypher. Eventually, they replaced a player, and I replaced him. And now I just play with them. And then eventually, the team it just ended. And then we went to a new team called SGG, Spunky Guns Gaming, and then now I just play with them, and it's been pretty nice. Yeah, I was just chilling here.
Pretty good success this first split too. Came
Yeah,
in second place overall.
yep.
How was that?
That the last game was a little rough. We weren't all there, but we got second place for the first time playing on Havoc. It wasn't too bad, but we could have done a lot better. But that's fine with me. I'll take second place.
Hannah knows a lot about second place. He does.
Oof.
Yeah, Kill. I don't know if you're aware, but if there's a competition for making like either top two or top four without ever finishing first place in Havoc, I'm probably in the.
Not probably.
That
He's the
is that's
champion.
Yeah,
unfortunate.
no, I
Number
am.
one uncontested player. Yeah,
You mean number one contested player? Like,
uncontested. Uncontested. Only you.
oh,
Only you.
okay. But I mean, like in the reality of like I'm contested as in like I lose every single grand
Yeah.
final.
That. Yeah. That as well. Yeah.
Yeah, maximum contested for winning grand
Mm,
finals, but
that's true.
you know, it is what it is. And I was actually helping coach you guys, Kilo, during
Yeah,
y'all's grand final run for Split One. Hopefully, I wasn't bothering you guys too much, but it was nice to be able to
I
chat with
enjoyed
you
it.
guys.
I think we learned a lot. Should definitely do it more though. I gotta improve a little more, but that's pretty good.
Mm.
Absolutely. Speaking of Split One, I guess we can talk overall about how Split One went. Um, Benji, do you have any thoughts on it?
I think there was some people didn't expect to do well, especially Slot Towns, who I firsthand playing against them, they were a lot more than I thought they were going to be. Because I hadn't heard any players. But playing against them, they're really underrated. Well, they were not as much anymore. So I think they have a lot of potential going into split two. But Team Gold, especially, expected to win. They did win. So, living up to the hype of that team, Cosmic, Alkaline players like that. So I think that went pretty expected in some ways, but unexpected in others.
Absolutely. You know who actually did? I was super surprised by was I think it was Sloth Dark, right? Who got second place?
Yeah, that was what I was talking about. I think we lost to them. We actually got, it was we got thrown around a little bit. It was I really didn't expect to because I hadn't heard of any of the players. I believe their first season in Havoc for all of them, so didn't expect much from them. But I was pleasantly surprised, not in the moment because we lost to them, but after just seeing pretty good teams. So I think they have a lot of potential going into the next split, which will taking place pretty shortly here. But definitely more contenders for that first spot than previously thought.
Absolutely, dude. I mean, I think the ceiling has been raised exponentially in what Havoc League play was like 3 or 4 seasons to go to what it is now. I mean, there was a time that it was me, Pix, and Memento winning like 14 straight series.
Yeah,
Like,
there
and it
was
was
a
just like
yeah.
it's crazy to think that that was the best of league play at that time, and
I
how
mean,
far it's come.
we've always had where it's one star player on a team that completely carries your team for the entire season. So it's good to see that it's shifted away from instead of there being one star player on a team that just really pulls their team. There's multiple players performing each game, even each series. So instead of having just one player doing everything, you have a full team aspect, which is kind of one of the core aspects here of trying to build a good team environment where you can learn to be a part of a team and work through that aspects of how to work with other people.
Yeah, it's definitely felt a lot more team oriented in I think these last 2 seasons. Like you said, it used to be just one goaded carry on the each of the top teams, and it was kind of just a fight of if your teammates could not throw to see if how well you did. But Keela, do you keep up with main league at all?
I don't, but I probably should start. I probably should.
You'll be there in one day, hopefully. So I would
Hopefully,
start
yeah.
now. Yeah.
I should
Kilo
probably start. You're
is,
right.
in my mind, like the best player in academy, like for sure, dude.
I
Like
appreciate that.
he does not look like an academy player at all.
I mean, I haven't watched much Academy, but from what I've seen of previous Academy seasons, where you can see a standout player where you look at them play versus Academy and you kind of just realize that they have the potential to move into main league, and they usually always do. I remember seeing players like Tazaro, Loki. I think Abdiel even was in the promotion relegation tournament for Academy. So seeing him, completely destroy it on Academy players, it's kind of just like you can recognize it that they're just a step above the rest, and then you see that them progress a couple seasons, and just see how far they can go. And some of them even have that chance to even go like maybe GC3, SSL. So definitely potential you can go from Academy to make it all the way up.
Dude, that's Kilo for sure. He's over here like double flip resetting on
Hmm. I mean,
regulars in academy league.
that's just happened with Rocket League, especially where mechs are more of a more common thing. So you see people even in lower ranks know how to flip reset. They know the ceiling shot. It's about actually being able to execute them, and then it's even more of a mental game where you have to fake out stuff. So I was actually talking about this today, where the meta has kind of shifted. Where also I use ceiling shots as an example, where before ceiling shots, when it was a new thing, you just did it and did it immediately super fast, and then people started delaying your ceiling shots, and then people started doing all that stuff. But the meta's come back to doing it immediately because everybody knows how to counter what you've been doing where you just fake it out and stuff like that. So I think it's just interesting. All that
Yeah, no,
stuff.
I mean like, dude, if as somebody who's been like GC for I don't know too many seasons now without ever like progressing beyond that, the the GC that I first touched like in season 13 is like you take GCs from season 13 against like GC ones now and it's like a complete difference. I mean even like C2s are at like the mechanical level that like GC used to be at,
Yeah.
that like 15, 1600 used to be at. That seems like, but again I think it comes down to like you said, there's counters that come out like with everything. Like you look at like these new hot players that uh, come out with these absurd ways of playing, like Dark, when he's incorporating pogos into all these 1v1 games.
Yeah.
Eventually, there will be more people being able to counter that, and then you'll have more adaptation because of that. Because it, you'll have this new meta that goes on for a while until everybody starts popularizing the counter to it, and then your meta has to adapt and evolve, and you have a never-ending, you know, rise of the ceiling as far as like mechanics go. But I think an underrated part of it, especially, is the mental game, like you were touching on, and smarts in general. You like players like Turbo Pulsa, and obviously at a pro level, you have to like have some level of good consistent mechanics, but he's not a flashy mechanical player. And being a four-time world champion, it shows that if you can play smart enough, you can make up for the lack of flashy mechanics to get by, as long as you're solid enough of a player.
Yeah, and I think that's what happens in low ranks, especially where these low rank players they watch pros play. You watch a squishy video, you see all these mechanics happening on the screen. You see it actually happening, but what you don't see is the mental process that goes behind it. All the decisions that happen that kind of just go by like positioning and stuff like that. So you don't actually see that happening, but what you do see is the mechanics. So they constantly practice those. They get really good at those, but they actually are lackluster what they need to be in that positioning aspect. So it takes. I know, especially was what happened with me where I knew all the mechanics, but you kind of had to learn how to play the game normally, which takes a lot longer than you'd expect instead of just practicing the same mechanic over and over again. Constantly doing a ceiling shot training pack. So
Yeah, dude, that's like, and I don't want to poo-poo on his name too much, but I don't know if you've ever met Ulti or Thomas. He's a very mechanical based player, but his like traditional sense of just playing the game is so altered because he's been so focused on mechanics for years that he doesn't think about the the, the afterwards. Like he's not focused on the recovery coming off of his mechanics. So he's quick to use every single lick of boost that he has getting across the field trying to do an air dribble, and then doesn't realize that he's leaving his teammates back, and he's stuck out of position for 10 and a half millennia before he can get back. And he has to struggle to, you know, keep it where he's at, even though his mechanical ability is like far more than like where I'm at. Like his mechanics are really, really good, but he just hasn't learned all of it as a whole, because there's a way to put it all together. That's why players like Nepo can do all these crazy things at once, because his recoveries are so insanely quick that he can counter the, you know, traditional being too all in, like for certain mechanical like flashy plays.
Yeah, and I think I've seen that especially in academy where you have these two different types of players. You have the players who focus primarily on mechanics and the flashy stuff, and you see them. They have their moments in academy, especially those clipworthy highlights and stuff like that. But you also see the players who focus a lot more on positioning and game sense. So you see those players, and it's just kind of you see the diversity of it, especially on the same team sometimes. Which that means that while some players are learning mechanics, some players are learning positioning and stuff in the same league, because they both have to be learned eventually. So it's kind of academy is a really good place to see your weaknesses, especially off other players what they have, and then build off top of that and become a better overall player holistically.
Kilo, have you uh like felt any of these like difficulties, like being in academy and being a more mechanically advanced player? Do you have issues where you don't feel like you maybe have the smarts aspect of the game, or like
Oh
where,
yeah,
where do you kind of
all the
stand on
time.
all this?
Like I focus a lot on mechanics, and that's making me play a little bad when it comes to like game sense and rotation. But like I've been working on rotation a lot more now than like I used to. But it definitely does affect you. Like you should definitely like play the game more, so you can like get better mechanically and game sense wise. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I've reviewed quite a few of your teams' replays, um, and I will say for like the traditional, you know, crazy mechanical player, you're not one to that I see struggling with the other aspects of the game. You don't see like you're putting your teammates in bad positions to try to like do some crazy solo play that's never going to work. You seem to have a better understanding, which is why I say that I think you're probably the best player in academy, because you have it's easy to see that potential, because you can have somebody like Ulti, who is just as mechanical like as you are, but he doesn't have near as much of the same game sense or understanding
yeah,
of team play in the way that I
right.
think that you do. And again, I've only seen you play a little bit, but you seem to have it down pretty good, and I think
Appreciate that. I
you're
will
on
keep
the right
grinding.
track
Hopefully, I can get a lot better.
for sure. This man is a goat. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Um,
Although I do change my sense like every single time I get on, which is holding me back a lot. And you guys should not do this. But every time I get on, I'm like, oh, I feel heavy. I raise it, and I get used to it. And then the next day, I don't like this. I'm gonna go back down, and then I feel heavy for the next 3 days. And then when I finally get used to it, I'm like, I can't spin in the air, and I go back up. And then it's back and forth, and then you make no progress. So
it's all
yeah,
about.
not good.
I know Luke talks about this a lot, but it's not about raising the ceiling, because the ceiling's only you're only at the ceiling like a
Mm.
small percentage of the time. It's all about raising your floor. It's all about the consistency of it. Like your worst day needs to be at a competitive level. You're not going to be able to compete, because like actual competition is an
Yeah,
extended period of you playing. Like you look at just like the league play, right? You can be, somebody who peaks on certain days and play and have a league play, but when you have a 5-8 month long season and you're playing however many series throughout that season, if you're not a consistent enough player, you're gonna lose some series. You're gonna lose some games, and
yeah,
especially in like a playoff setting, if you have to play 6 series and win all of them to take the grand finals, then you know it's you have to be consistent enough. And Luke talks about the lot. You have to raise your floor. Um,
yep.
Consistency's key. And look at like pro players. They play how many scrims a day, dude? Like I mean, they they're constantly playing,
Yep.
constantly trying to keep up that consistency, which I think a lot of people don't focus on near as much. I think that's why Luke harps on it so much. Because your worst day needs to be, able to compete, or you're just you're gonna lose. If it's your worst day, you're gonna lose. If your floor is not up.
Indeed.
So on that, I guess we can go ahead and start talking about Split 2. What's upcoming? And I'm curious, Benji. Who do you? I wanna hear your bet on who do you think's taking it all.
I think it's
I'm
gonna be
gonna
Team
judge.
White, honestly.
Let's
Uh,
go.
man, I think Team White. There's a lot of fire. We got a lot of new players coming in, lost players coming in, so definitely some potential there for Team White. We got Slot Dark we talked about, but I mean the actual clear favorites probably are gonna be Team Golden. Won it last time. I think they're having some new additions as well, so definitely a super team incoming, and it's gonna fall to one of the teams to go and challenge them. So whether that's gonna be Team White, Slot Dark, anybody else, it's gonna have to be one of the teams to step up and go challenge them for Split 2, and then eventually the playoffs. So still the especially the tournament we saw. I think it was 2 days ago, yesterday, the Havoc Christmas tournament. Team Gold members won that as well, so definitely hyping themselves up for Split 2, and definitely the clear favorites going into Split 2.
I agree with you. Also, just for reference, I also have Team White taking it all.
Yep,
Just how could you not? And Kilo, just for reference, if you didn't know, Benji's my teammate on Team
that's
White.
true.
So
That's true. That's
Oh.
true.
and we Team White actually making some roster changes. We lost Pixacarn. He went to Team Gold, and so I think Team Gold consists now of Cosmic, Pixacarn, and K Frost. I think K Frost.
Yeah,
Did they confirm that?
I think so. Yeah, which
That's
is a
gonna
team
be-
outside of Havoc, mid Jesus.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely no shy
They're
team
doing like
that.
RLCS qual stuff and stuff together now, huh?
Yeah, it's an entire team. So definitely more than just Havoc, but Havoc teams have to face them. So as I said, it's a super team definitely. So gonna have to see who can step up to the level of play, especially that they demonstrated last season. But I think that Split 2 is gonna be kind of Split 1 maybe in the preparation phase. This is just to see how everything is gonna look like finalized before playoffs, before the champion stage, whatever we call it, the last part of it. This is gonna test the waters and see who's gonna make it, who isn't gonna make it, and more importantly, who is looking like they're a top 3 contender, top 4 contender, looking like they have what it takes to win it all.
Kilo, I want your opinion, bro. Who do you have
Team Gold.
taking it all? Team
Team
Gold,
Gold.
The-
Mm. You missed that
bro.
Team White, bro. Wrong color. Wrong color.
Obviously, I think your mic's bugging. Sounded like you said.
Oh yeah,
Team
yeah. Let me
Gold,
fix
but
that. Let me fix that. I meant to
obviously-
say Team White.
Thank
Oh,
you.
okay, there
I
we
think
go.
my microphone lagged a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, no worries. Have you watched them? Like you say, you don't keep up with main league all that much, but have you watched like Team Gold or any of them play?
I
Any of
haven't.
the
I haven't seen anybody play on main.
Dude, they're Team Gold, like they're at least in their previous roster iteration, um, really good team. Like, I mean, Cosmic, obviously, like, what is he? Is he still top 10 in ones now? I
Yeah,
don't
he's
know.
like top 4,
He's top 5, yeah.
top 5.
He
Wow.
he's
Last I
the
checked, he was not.
highest, yeah. He's the highest rated North American 1v1 player at the moment.
Dude, that's
Yeah.
that's insane. Cosmic has, and I thought that Cosmic, even like when he came around, was really up there as far as like where he is. You see players come in like Abdiel, who really wasn't that good of a player when he started coming around, and then has progressed a bunch, and you're like, oh my gosh, that dude progressed a bunch. But Cosmic, who started up here, has even progressed a lot. I mean, he's doing great things, like really good things. That dude has no limitations. If he keeps staying on the track that he's on, because what is he? Is he 15?
16, I believe. Still very young, very young. So
Yeah, for sure, dude. Easily could get into. I know that he's been in talks with Fear about getting on a show match.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool, dude. There's probably going to be a day sometime soon that we see Cosmic on Johnny Boy's channel for a 1v1 show match against somebody else. That would be awesome, dude. I mean, props to Cosmic for doing great things like that. I mean, that's that's insane. Obviously, the dude has either no brain or the world's strongest brain for being able to put up with 1v1 endlessly day after day. Because, dude, I want to punch a hole through my monitor.
I could never.
Three
I could
ones
never.
fixed.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm telling you. Does that happen to you? Like, I
Oh,
just
it's infuriating. Yeah.
All the time. I think I actually have a hole in my wall. I could show you guys later, but I actually do have a hole in my wall. It isn't beautiful, but yeah, I can do one. So I don't understand how the Cosmic can do it. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
impressive, but yeah.
I mean, you got Pixcar as well, who he started out. I think he's been in Havoc for 2 years, around that. He's been in Havoc for quite a while, and he's always been afloat. He's always been considered, probably in my opinion, as always the best player in Havoc, just individually speaking. And he's always been on Team White. Now he's on Team Gold, but he's always been here. I think this is finally the moment where he's gonna show what he can do. But not to mocking Panda, but with teammates of his caliber, teammates at his level. So I think once he's finally got that, I think this is probably gonna be an even scarier Team White than we saw, or Team Gold, sorry, than we saw last season. And definitely gonna be like it'll be good just to get a couple of game wins, let alone a series win off them. But I do believe we have some good teams that will be able to match them.
absolutely. I mean, like we were talking about before, Sloth Dart unexpectedly. Well, I don't mean unexpectedly in like a bad way. I just wasn't expecting much out of them when we faced them, and they
Yeah.
got clapped around pretty good. And if they continue to play like that, I think that they'd be a pretty good contender for Team Gold. Obviously, it's gonna be interesting to see how they stack up against the each other. But sorry, but I mean, it's gonna be like you said, it's gonna be pretty nuts. There's just gonna be a whole lot of competition and really, really good teams. I think Team White, given that we lost Pix, even though as sad as it is, and I will always support Pix. I'm good friends with him, and I'm happy for him to be doing what is best for him. But I think Pix's issue that maybe like Team White can capitalize on is like the consistency in the mental game, because Pix kind of, I think, in my opinion, from having played around Pix for like well over a year now, I think it's probably coming up on 2 years, is just his, when he gets in a bad mood or thinks something unfortunate has happened like mid game or mid series, his mental and his it just like it goes out the window, and he's not the same player that started that series, and I think
Yeah.
that's probably his big downfall. And I think that's going to be something that the other teams could try to capitalize on. I think Cosmic's less affected by that, but Cosmic seems like the type of person, maybe you know a bit better than I do, Benji, about Cosmic's like mental game, like mid series. But
Yeah, it's kind of more of a like slow tilt. Like you won't see him like completely rage out or anything. You'll see him kind of get a little bit annoyed at these type of things. So, but again, I don't see that be much of an issue, especially if they have players like they don't have to fully carry. They have to perform at the highest level of caliber. They just have to perform well enough that they're not being a deficit to the team. They don't have to be an asset. They just kind of have to be there at that point, which is good for the players on that team. I don't know K Frost too much, but I do know that he's definitely a very skilled player. So definitely high potential in the reigning champions of Split 1 going into Split 2.
for sure. Um, Hilo, question from chat. They want to know what your thoughts on how Academy is going to go for Split 2.
That's a good question because Split 1 went absolutely no way like we thought it would. But I think Split 2 could go well if my team decide to scrim more. I do have to talk to my teammates. They're liking us. We're liking on scrims. We've been struggling to find scrims also, but I think if we all put in the work, I think we could take it. Like, we lost to Prelude's team, and during scrims, we used to actually do really good against them. I believe at some point it was 11-3, and then when it was game day, we actually lost. I don't know what went wrong. I know we were like tilted. Like, I have a problem where I imagine something bad, and then I keep thinking about it, and it affects me so much in game. It causes me to hesitate. I'm like, holy crap! Like, stuff could go bad, but yeah, I need to work on my mental, and we need to start screaming a lot more. I'm personally going to be grinding every single day, but yeah, that's just me. I don't know
Are
about my
you
teammates. I
still
can't
teaming
control that.
with the same two guys that you were before?
Yep. Yep.
So that's one of them's name is like Chair or something like that.
Mr. Chair. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the man.
And then who's your third?
Say.
Who?
Say.
How do
Zay.
you spell it?
Yeah.
Zay. Oh,
Zay.
okay, yeah. Okay. It's been a minute. I haven't studied the names too well, but yeah, dude. I think that y'all work really well together. I just think that if y'all just like do a little patching some holes,
Yep.
like as a team, there's just I think there's a few like teamwork patches to be made, and I think if
Mhm.
y'all do that, y'all like by far like are the best team in academy. I think y'all definitely take split two in the championships for sure. Um,
I
y'all
think so
play
too.
really well together. I just think that
A
like
lot
some
of
of y'all might not be on
inconsistency.
the same page. Yeah,
Yeah.
y'all want the same thing. There's different paths and different roads to get to the same location. And I think that's what some teams say sometimes. Just everybody's going in the same direction, but you're just not on the same path.
Right.
Benji, the kappa in chat,
I mean, I think we can transition into our next topic, which would be RLCS in general, and specifically speak the fall major that just ended in Rotterdam. Which I mean, I didn't watch too much of it, but when I did watch it, it definitely surprised me by how many teams or how close the skill gap is between what we call minor regions and what we call major regions. There really is no team that is an underdog at this point. Any team that performs good on the day can be a top 5 team in the world, and most of them can win these entire big tournaments. So
sure. I mean, like historically, like OCE has been like they're just getting a participation trophy, right? Like,
yeah,
and then like in the beginning of like Sam coming into the scene, it was kind of the same way, and like they just weren't on the same level.
yeah,
Obviously, Furia haven't gotten an A, but I mean, dude, I mean, you look at these teams now, and like you said, on the day of, it's whoever shows up can take it,
yeah.
from any one of these teams. Me personally, dude, I'm super happy that Genji took the championship for the fall major, dude. I mean, I am super hype about that team. I always liked Noli as a player. Jack is my favorite pro, and it's good to see Chronic where he's at now, based on like where he was at like a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, Chronic's story is kind of amazing. He was stuck in the bubble scene for probably years. I think probably at least 2 years. And an org like Genji, who big org, they have a lot of South Korean org, have a lot of big teams. They come into Rocket League, they pick up this relatively, I wouldn't say washed, but just unknown North American bubble player. And to see him perform at the highest level and do good and be recognized for his play at the highest level is incredible. And a story I also want to highlight is when I saw they got third, fourth, Team Secret, very, very unexpected because they weren't even doing the best in their own region in South America. I'd say that the club were doing better than them. There are other teams that were just doing better than them. But they come in here, they go 3-1 in the group stage. They beat teams like Space Station and Moist, especially, who Moist went to the grand finals. And then they come in and they beat Version 1, who, I mean, I would consider Version 1 to be the most consistent North American team just because they always perform. Maybe apart from FaZe Clan, I'd say that they're both probably neck and neck. And then they take it to Moist Esports. Don't expect it, but Moist Esports also had a really rough. They barely snuck into at fifth place. They snuck into this LAN, and they had a really good resurgence and made to the grand finals and almost won the entire tournament. So definitely, whoever plays better on the day, as long as you make it to the tournament, still have a chance at winning.
Absolutely, and like you were talking about, like with Chronic's story, it's not like he was just there and he's just getting carried by Jack and Noli. Like, I mean, he was a really strong force like on that team, and I think I wouldn't call him like a carry, but and he was the crucial part of that team that like without I think if you replace Chronic with a different player in the same like sort of like situation, I don't think that they have the same outcome of how that team works out playing against other top level teams like that. So I think that's truly amazing for for them to pick up Chronic and do so well with him. I mean and this is your first like split with as a team, and for you to take that major just like first off like that. I mean that's awesome. And then with Noli and Jack having switched regions, why speaking on that, why did they switch from EU to NA? Like,
I mean, I believe that. I mean, from Apnak's point of view, he was on Dignitas for the entire season. Dignitas had a really good start to RLCS 21-22. They won. Believe it was the first regional in like August of 2021. They made it to the fall major. They didn't do too well. I think they went 3-0 on the Swiss stage and then lost in top 8. And then after that, it was kind of just a slow decline. And then I guess Genji offered it to Nolly as well, so they just both moved. Yeah, I believe they were living in Toronto for the entire split, but incredible consistent. I think it was probably they were the most consistent team in North America. They got 2 grand finals appearances and a win, so like that's just really really good. And they got the fall major win, of course. So I don't know why it happened, but I am happy that it happened, as it's making NA a region with much more depth than before.
dude, Kilo, what are your thoughts, man? Like, you keep up with RLCS and all that?
I do, and I wish FaZe did better. I just wish that they would take a win at some
Fourth,
point, man.
fourth killer. I believe
Fourth killer.
he's gotten fourth at like every single land in
It's
the past like
unfortunate.
yeah.
Very
So
unfortunate. Hopefully, at some point, maybe next split, maybe they'll take it home. Maybe they
uh,
make some improvements and finally take it. Like
maybe
they're
another
all
roster
good.
change.
Yeah.
Maybe
Or
another roster change.
hey, no.
First
That'd be
killer's gonna
like
start
the
drinking big long
27th
now.
roster change. I don't think a 27th roster change would help too much, but
Yeah.
yeah, I really do think FaZe can take it home. They're my favorite team.
I feel like first has like fallen off like heavy, bro.
You think so? Why is that?
I don't know. I used to think of him as like undoubtedly probably like the best player in the world. And I don't know necessarily that like he's fallen off. I just think maybe the competition has risen up to his level and he doesn't have that same edge that he had like in like RLCSX or like even last season. I don't know. He just doesn't seem to have near big as an impact on the field as what I'm used to seeing him have. I don't know. Maybe it's placebo of just watching FaZe constantly not clutch up. I don't know.
Could be.
I mean, I noticed that the first killer was considered probably the best player in North America for a year up to this point, but I think, as you said, NA is just getting more top tier players, and it's harder to get that same edge where you can determine yourself as so different from the pack. Because again, it's all about who performs better on the day, and not everybody has the pop off days they used to have. So I think it's just a good thing that we see NA has not one clear cut best player in the world, but I think that they might need a roster change to propel themselves forward. Basically, I mean, Frisco is known for kicking his teammates off when they don't perform, but if they do stick with this roster, I think they could do a lot of damage. But if Frisco is in that mindset where he needs to, make a roster change, then I don't think anything's going to stop him from actually making the roster change.
Just he's so much influence, bro. I don't. Who's letting this man run everything? He's just gonna start running through every single player, and then realize that the common denominator is him.
I mean, he's
You
the
know?
best player in the world.
And I genuinely believe like he was at one point. I don't know that I share that same thoughts now. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just
I mean,
and it sucks for me. Dude, I'm a huge G2 fanboy, dude. Like, I mean, the OG team of like my favorites was Crow, Rizzo, and JNaps. Like, dude, I just wanted to see them take it all. Like, and so many times. Dude, season nine, like, I still sit. I will die on the hill that season 9 G2 World Champions, like 100%.
I think that
They
as
were
well.
undoubtedly the best team in the world. Like,
I
nobody had
remember,
the counter yet for
yeah.
them.
I mean, season 9 G2, you gotta talk about the story of season 8, or actually season 7. You go back to season 7, they pick up Chicago. They had a really good run. They got second. I believe that, I don't know if you remember, but it was in Newark, New Jersey. Grand finals, first game, they're up a goal. They don't drop the ball. They get scored on at 0 seconds, and after that, they just completely start losing. I believe that if they won that first game and they didn't get scored on at 0 seconds, they probably would have won season 7 in that grand finals. But they don't win there. Season 8. Actually, in the season 7 offseason, they're the best team in the world, undoubtedly. They should have won that one land. I think it was DreamHack Montreal, but the Peeps won that one. They lost the grand finals to an upset. And then season 8 comes around. They had a horrible season. They went like 2-5 at the end league play. They dropped out of promotion relegation. They barely don't get relegated to RLRS. They come back for season 9 and they win the whole thing, but that's when COVID started, so no land there. So, I mean, G2 has definitely a turbulent road in all CS. I think that, especially in this tournament, they went 2-3. They barely didn't make it out of groups because they just had a really rough start. They had to pull off the reverse sweep and they lost it by one game versus Moist in game 5. So, I mean, G2, I think they have potential to be the best team in the world, but they also have the potential to be one of the worst teams in a tournament at the same time.
I think G2 is just so heavily momentum based that
Yeah.
when they're on a roll, they are so hard to be stopped. But when they are in the dumps, dude, they look abysmally bad, dude. Like, I don't understand how they could, on so many occasions, look like you're like, dude, that is the best team in the world. Like that, those three are like the best Rocket League players that like are playing the game right now. And then like, literally, like the next big event, you'd be like, why did those guys get an invite to this? Like,
Yeah.
it looks
mean,
like RLRS players like playing
That
in
that's been the whole talk of like APAC and especially James Cheese, who went 0-9. They didn't win a single game in this LAN. But I mean, if you look at the games individually, they had some tough competition. They're playing against KC, who they actually got perfect swept by in the first round. They play against Falcons, who they actually the last two games were 1-goal games, so it's a little bit better there. And the last round they got G2, who again still keeping it close. They had an overtime and they had a 1-goal game. So they're, I mean, able to score on the best teams in the world, but they're just not able to put up games or even series versus them. So you have to ask the question of like, will this region develop in time like the OCE region has, like with Power, and even with South America, they've developed in time. But regions like APAC, Sub-Saharan Africa, it's just might take a little bit longer for them to actually get up to pace with the higher level teams.
and that was the other thing about GT's like momentum. I think they got robbed at Worlds. I'm not gonna lie. I will say it was the best thing ever for like my first Rocket League LAN. I went to LA and for G2 to take that. That was just like the most hype moment. Like this like a picture perfect like memory like in my brain that will be there forever. But dude,
Yeah.
when G2 like came out on the stage, I don't know if you remember this, but like dude, JNAPS was like in the zone. Like you could feel it. Every single one of them were. Like they were just like there. And you were like, dude, they are taking this. Like this is it. And then Atomic had that like headphone mishap.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, his headset wasn't working or something like that. And like literally there was a big countdown going on the screen. And then just like nothing. And you see some guy like scrambling running under the stands to go get him a new headset. And I was like, dude, in that moment, I was like, it's chalked. It's done for. Like it's over. Like their momentum's gone. Like they were ready like in the zone and then it stopped. And then like there was I think a point in the series when they had I think they were like coming back in the game or like they were like tied in the game and had some stupid like kickoff thing happen and then just played horribly for the remainder of it. And it was like, did they? Again, it's momentum based, and that's the thing about momentum based teams is your momentum in the right direction is amazing, but your momentum in the wrong direction is going to be your downfall every single time.
Yeah.
What do you guys think NRG should do to become good again?
Dude, I don't know.
To become good again.
Yeah,
I think
they have
that
been lacking.
they have been lacking for. It's coming up to a year now because the first tournament they really lacked in was the winter major, because they didn't even make it to the stage, which I mean they ever thought it was a fluke tournament, but they ended up really bombing out of every other tournament that year. So I think that what they have to do, I know there are rumors of Justin going to Furia,
Yep.
which I knew that was something that could have happened. I don't think it's happening. The deal fell out, but
I
think that
think it's lost now. It's going to
yeah,
Furia.
it's lost now, but I think lost is going to Furia, yeah, from the club. But if they actually do want to win, I think honestly these players they're kind of the last of the old generation. There's some players like JNAP's in it, but Squishy and Garrett especially have been there basically since day one. So if they want to keeping up with them, they have to put in basically more work than the younger players. But like they're older now at that point, they have different priorities in life at that point. So I think that it might have to require a roster change. And my first look would be Squishy, just because
Yeah, I agree.
Garrett G's a lot more consistent than Squishy, and he plays a bigger role in the team. Justin, you can't really replace him, so they're trying to replace their coach and stuff like that. But I think Squishy would probably be the first one I'd look to boot off the team.
Dude, that's kind of been like the biggest like difficulty like understanding of like what has gone on has been the whole NRG situation, because like you look like individually at those players, like every single one of them is like I would have in like my top 20 like in the world, like 100% probably, or at least okay, take away this last like year, right, and you have them like in the top of the world, like individually, like they're top tier players, but
Yeah.
they just I don't know like what it is, dude. They just have not been performing. But I think you're right, like, and I think that's something to speak on is I think there is a completely new generation of Rocket League pros that play the game so differently from what the earlier seasons. I mean, you just look at like the difference from like season 6 to now. Like it's not even anywhere near the same. I mean, if you were to go like look at like the season 1 like World's Grand Finals, like you're like, dude, that's like plat level gameplay. Like it's horrible. But even from like season 6, you'd say like, season 6 players are still like, dude, you have to be so good at the game to be winning that world championship. But like the difference nowadays is, I think the difference from like season 1 to season 6 is like similar to the difference from like season 6 to now. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's changed so much, and I think that's an issue with a lot of like pros that have been in the scene a long time is they get complacent like what has worked for them, and there's a point where you're not that guy anymore. And I mean,
Yeah.
you look at like Lethamyr. Lethamyr was like never a bad player. Was always a decent, consistent player in the pro scene. But like, he's like 30 now. Like, he can't
Yeah.
do the stuff that these new kids, even like 14-year-olds that are like pooping on everybody in 1v1s. Like, it just, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, it's just that it's a matter of what I think is just that there's more passion for the game because there's less experience with it, and there's more free time on the hands because these younger players, especially, it just comes down, you don't have to work, you don't have to do many things, especially some more worries of the mind, especially where you can't focus your attention fully on what you should be doing on or what you want to be doing, which is the game. So no matter how hard they try, they just can't get that edge back that they used to have when they were younger. And by younger, I mean like Rocket League has a very, very young age gap, or like the time from time like starting to play from time to retire. Because you look at a esport like CS:GO, where there's pros like at the top of their game at like 32 years old. Like they are very, very older compared to maybe the top pros are 23, 24 years old. So it's just a different aspect to the game. I've never I've noticed that, but it's never really been something that you need to look at. But it's just always been something that's been there. So.
I think with that, we'll move on to our esports topic, like in general. I don't know how much you guys keep up with anything outside of Rocket League. I used to be pretty into CSGO, but I don't keep up with it near as much anymore. What about you guys?
Anything, Kilo?
Um, I don't have too much.
Yeah. The only other esport I really watch is CS:GO, especially, and the only events really that's been happening, and I'm not gonna talk about it too much, just because if nobody else has watched it, then not too much. But the last World Final happened. I think it was a couple days ago, and the team that won it was G2, who I mean they haven't really been performing as well as they had a lot of expectations with some of the best players in the world in their team, and they hadn't had a lot of tournament wins to back it up. But this is the first big tournament win for the team, so I think that they could do very well. But I mean, there was the Esports Game Awards, and I think that Elden Ring won it, right, for the Game of the Year. So that's
Yeah,
pretty good. Yeah, that was. I haven't played Elden Ring, but I hear it's a pretty good game.
God of War
Got
should
it.
have taken it, in my
I
opinion.
think it's
Who would
just
you say?
God
least
of War should have
original.
taken the trophy.
Yeah, that's also a pretty
I
good
don't
game.
disagree. Do the people that play Elden Ring like play Elden Ring? It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I say that as if like I don't only play Rocket League. But
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe I just think they're weird, bro.
yeah,
Like, and it's like I think like G2 historically, as far as like their CS side, has been a really like top of the world team. And it's just I think it's just
yeah,
interesting to look at like orgs in general and how you have like an EU based org with these best in the world Counter-Strike players, and then you have it as an NA team for Rocket League, who's been
Yeah.
like so close to taking it all so many times, it just can't do it.
Yeah. I mean, G2, especially in CSGO, they first had a primarily French roster of French players. And then I think it was sometime in 2019, the end of 2019, they started transitioning into an international roster, which is what we've yet to see that in Rocket League. Because these teams, I mean, we see it right now with Gen G, and this actually could be a big motivating thing where it's international rosters, where what we see with Rocket League is it's one team from one region speaking the same language, whether that be Portuguese, Spanish. They speak that one language and they go with it. But from what we see from CS:GO is that these players who come from different regions, especially G2, who has two Bosnian players, an Australian, a Dane from Denmark, and then a Russian. It really no clear cut. They all speak English, and it's just you build a giant super team, an international team, and you take trophies with it. Which I mean, that could be the direction that Rocket League is headed. Which is very interesting.
I would be so excited to see that. To see, because I think you could, like cherry pick the best players from each region and just make an absolute super team. Like I think
Yeah.
if you combine like Yan with like two other just absolute
Batira.
monsters, Fatira and maybe like Daniel or something, dude. Could you
Yeah.
imagine that team?
I mean, it all comes down to if they can speak English or not, because English is, of course, the language that is used. So if they're willing to either learn English or already speak English, or of course another language, I believe that Justin already speaks Spanish. So if he were to go to Furia, then he could have just spoke Spanish on that team. So it's just about if you can get one language to communicating clearly, and if it'll work or not. Because even if you have some of the best players in the world, you still might have different diverse playstyle because regions develop their own playstyle with a game. Because the EU gameplay is a lot different from the NA gameplay now, even the South American gameplay. So it's just about finding some clear common ground and then working off that to try and build a connection somehow, and then see how far you can take it.
Yeah, I think it definitely like depends like player based, like for sure. Talking about like the language barrier, and then obviously like NA gameplay traditionally has been a lot more different than EU, and the same for Sam. But if you combine all those, if you can find a way to make it all work, I think that you'll end up with something really good. It's just I think if you don't have the pieces that fit right together, then it'll just never work. And it'll just be a mess. But if you can find a way to make that work right, that would be I think that'd be amazing. You have unlimited potential for what these teams can become. I think there's people from around the world that would work actually really well together, given the right circumstances. So
Yeah.
that'd be pretty cool, man. I'd love to see esports as a whole like moving to that. But yeah,
I have an off topic question. Do you guys
Mhm.
feel like learning Rocket League helps you like learn a lot faster in other aspects of life? Like I feel like it becomes easier to learn something that isn't in Rocket League because you play a lot of Rocket League and you sit there like learning. You
I think
understand?
it's
Like
I think it has to do with anything that you put a lot of time and effort into. Because especially with Rocket League, I put in probably over 4,000 hours into Rocket League. And it hasn't been in one thing, it's been over time. And there's been times where you feel like you're not making any progress. There's been times where you feel like you made so much progress. There's been ups and downs, especially with it. So you learn to go through the process, which the process just happens with everything. And anything you try and learn to do that is new, you're going to face circumstances and situations where you're not going to feel like you're making progress at all. You're just stuck in the same spot. But if you stay consistent and you stay patient and constantly trying to learn, then I
yeah,
do think that it can translate into other things, especially maybe IRL things besides gaming. But Rocket League definitely does teach you a lot of stuff. It taught me kind of just things how to communicate properly, how to work out well with others, because especially in Rocket League, you want to be able to be a clear communicator of problems and you want to be a sort of motivator and leader in and out of the game because you want your
yeah,
teammates, you want to give your teammates the best circumstances, so you don't want to be putting them down. You want to be constantly helping them through. Maybe they may make a mistake, things like that. So definitely some things
yeah.
you can take from Rocket League into your life.
I think
What
like that's a. I'm sorry.
one thing Rocket League hasn't helped me improve is my mental. I don't know what it is. I just cannot fix it. Like I've tried. It just I get too negative too fast. Like anything could upset me, and then I just cannot come back from it until like I chill out, chill in free play, watch a show while I play free play. Like, yeah, it won't help with that. Guaranteed.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that Benji touched on was like actually like really kind of important. If you think about like somebody who's put 4 or 5 thousand hours into Rocket League, obviously is in like the top 1 or 2% of people in the world who play the game, like traditionally. Um, but what's another thing that you've put 4 or 5 thousand hours of your life into, like learning and doing? Like
Yeah.
I would venture that let's say you played like football growing up as a kid and you played from like little league all the way through high school, I would venture to say that you probably still have not spent 5,000 hours playing football. Like through all the practices and games, you might maybe be at that point. But like then like what is football to you at that point? It's synonymous to what Rocket League is to you, like 5,000 hours in, you know.
Yeah.
But I think there's very few things that the people who take, you know, like Rocket League or any other competitive esport like seriously, there's very few things that I think compare to that. Um, Obviously, it's vastly different than a lot of other things that you could compare it to. But I
I
mean,
think art, like if
Mhm.
you spend the same amount of hours you put in Rocket League and you make it like into art, drawing and stuff, like eventually you will get better. Like I don't know anything about art, but I'm just assuming that would help
You
you.
struggle to draw stick figures. I don't know that I can.
Oh yeah,
I
I
feel like
same bro.
I could do like 5,000 hours worth of drawing, and I'd still end up
I
with
can't even
stick
do a
figures.
straight stick. Like it will not be straight.
Dude, that's just one of those things. Like I don't have I don't want to say I don't have a creative mind, but like I have the ideas. I just like
I know, right?
my fingers cannot.
Putting it in there is just impossible for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, some people have it and some people don't. I mean, I
Yeah,
think that's kind of like, dude, I've met people, like, some people just pick up on stuff insanely quick. Like,
yeah.
Benji, do you remember Pixie, who
I
used
do
to
remember
play
Pixie.
in
Yeah.
Havoc? Do you know, like, what his total hours are in Rocket League? Like, ever?
No.
Like, 600.
Yeah.
And he was, like, at one point in time, was, like, in the top of Havoc. And, like, it, again, has been, like, a Grand Champ player for, like, a long time. And has, like, 600 hours in the game. Like, that is bonkers to me, dude. I don't understand how people pick up on stuff that quickly and excel. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm getting older now. I'm in the entering the geriatric stage of Rocket League players, being 24. I'm like phasing out
Feel
into
that.
like I physically cannot compete anymore with these young kids, man. There's something about it.
Hmm.
It's just the kids like we know this like pick up new skills and abilities significantly faster than adults
Yeah,
do. They just have that ability, and then some kids on top of that just are innately good at Rocket League from picking up a controller. So,
Yeah.
but on that, I think we're going to transition into our closing statements. I do want to give a special shout out to Luke, the CEO of Havoc, has been extremely helpful in putting this podcast together. He's done a lot of behind the scene work and assisting us, and he's actually running production for us right now because we had a cutback in staffing, and so we needed some assistance. And of course, Luke stepped up to the plate as per usual. Special thanks to Benji for being a top tier co-host, first podcast, and my man, even when he's coming off of a sickness, he's been sick for a couple days, still's here doing it. So special thanks to you, Benji. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you to Kilo, first ever special guest on the podcast. I appreciate you, like
for sure.
literally 10 minutes before we went live,
Yep,
agreeing to come in and be our guest. I appreciate all that.
of
And
course.
some other people. Tim does some research for us. So does Cosmic, and Finest typically does production. So thank you to all those people. And with that, we're gonna wrap up the very first Havoc Esports podcast. Thank you for everybody taking a listen.